Okay, now I'm going to do screen share. All right. All right. So welcome to the presentation of getting a PhD in Integrative Biology at UC Berkeley. Thank you for joining us. As I mentioned, the first part will be recorded, but the question and answer session will not be. And just, Okay, here we go. Here's the presenter. So my name is Monica Albee. I'm the Graduate Student Services Advisor in the Department of Integrative Biology. We have two faculty, Jose and Rory, present that are going to talk about research and a little bit about themselves. And then we also have a graduate student, Excel, who's going to talk about the graduate student experience. So welcome, everyone. First question that a lot of people might have is, what is integrative biology? Because it's not as clear as like, oh, neuroscience or cell biology. And integrative biology combines, integrates multiple aspects of the biosciences together. So we have a very diverse department with people from expertise ranging all over the map on the biological sciences, paleontologists to human biology folks. And the thing that knits them all together is that they approach their research from several different aspects. So they integrate several different fields and several different approaches in their pursuit of their research questions. So they could be looking at the genetics, but also behavioral ecology, for example. So this cube's trying to illustrate like the multi-dimensional feeling of integrative biology. And just to illustrate, like, wow, the vast array of departments and programs that we connect with, I just pulled the different PhD programs on campus that our faculty have recently served on PhD dissertation committees for. So this is other PhD programs and departments on the UC Berkeley campus that our faculty have connections with. And it's just all over the map, right? From environmental sciences and to computational biology, engineering, molecular biology, neuroscience, nutrition, geology, psychology. It's just a vast array. It's very exciting to be able to work with a lot of different science fields. And Berkeley has some really excellent ones. And then just to introduce you to our program, currently our head graduate advisor is Professor Seth Finnegan. I'm the graduate student services advisor. I also got my undergrad degree in integrative biology a long time ago. We have 127 graduate students currently and 51 faculty members, including adjunct faculty and professors of the graduate school that are available as mentors and advisors to our students. We have world-renowned research collections with research staff that all have PhDs, so even more mentors available for students. Our students get access to an incredible UC reserve system that you'll be learning more about. And like I said, you get to interact with lots of different disciplines across campus. And our student body is from around the world and from many different backgrounds. So it's exciting. You'll get to meet all different kinds of people from all different kinds of backgrounds. And we're a public institution, so our community is engaged and wants to make a difference. There's, especially in the graduate student community, there's a lot of activism. And for, at Berkeley, for the undergraduates, 67% of our undergraduates receive some sort of financial aid. 40% pay no tuition at all because they are fully funded through scholarships or Pell Grants, things like that. So we have a fair number of students who are first generation, first in their family to attend college. And in our PhD program, we have students who are first in their family to attend college or first in their family to get a PhD. And we really appreciate all different backgrounds different perspectives, because that's what brings innovation to science. So as you decide whether integrative biology is right for you, just a little overview. We're a direct admit program. So some programs, a lot of cell biology programs, for example, will have students apply, and then they get into the program, and in the first 2 years, they have a whole bunch of different classes and programs, and they rotate through several different labs in the department to sort of feel things out and decide what they want to do for their research project. A direct admit program is when a student applies and goes directly into a faculty lab right from the beginning. And they work with that faculty mentor and a few other faculty advisors on their committee to formulate their plan for their dissertation in their first 2 years, and then they move on to doing their independent dissertation work in the next 4 to 6 years. So it's really important to connect in with the faculty mentors, possible faculty mentors, and potentially even their graduate students before applying, to see if they're taking students, if it's a good fit, if your research interests really align with theirs. So doing that before you actually apply. Then once you apply, if you get into our program, there are 5 years guaranteed funding at $30,000, stipend of $30,000 every year. That includes tuition and fees. So that's living expenses, and then you would also have your tuition and fees covered, guaranteed. And that is through a combination of teaching, research positions, and fellowships. And for applying to our program, the GRE is not required. And there's also a lot of different fee waivers that are available. So normally the cost to apply is $140, but there are a lot of cool fee waivers. You can follow up with me. I can give you a link for information on that. And Berkeley has resources for DACA students, international students, students with families, and lots more. So if you're interested in hearing more about the resources for students for your specific situation, please, I welcome you to follow up with me. My email is right there. And in case you're interested in applying this year, our application is due December 1st. So once you're here, another cool thing about our program is it's really like a choose your own adventure. Like I said, we're direct admit. You get, our faculty have a wide range of interests and expertise. So we don't have a whole bunch of dogmatic rules and structure to our PhD program. Some programs you have to take all these different classes in your first 2 years. Our program, the only class that is, we have basically 3 classes that our students often take. Evolutionary biology course, and then there's a teaching colloquium, and then we also have like an academic success seminar course around writing, grant writing, that students often take. But other than that, you work with your faculty mentor and your faculty advising committee to come up with what classes work best for your interests and where you want to go with your PhD. And the other structure to our program is we have, an annual committee meeting that students have with their faculty. You have to at least have 4 semesters of residency at the Berkeley campus. You have to teach at least 2 semesters as a graduate student instructor. The end of your second year, you take an oral qualifying exam, and once you pass that, the whole rest of your time that you're in our PhD program, you're working on your independent dissertation research. And that's it. So it's very flexible. It's really good for students who are very self-motivated, self-driven, and like having that control. So thinking about grad school in general, we also want students to feel like they can bring their whole self to Berkeley. So be thinking about the whole picture of what you want out of your PhD. So you're not only going to be pursuing your research interests in depth, but think about the time you're going to be spending with your family and friends. That's important. Your social network, the people that are going to get you through the hard times, right? Um, while you're here, you're going to be building your reputation, building your CV, learning job skills for tomorrow's job markets, um, contributing, thinking about how your research is contributing to the world's knowledge and making those professional connections and personal connections. You're going to be exploring the Bay Area and the US. And as you work at Berkeley, you'll get the chance to work with world leaders in your fields and have experiences of a lifetime. So it's a very exciting time, but we don't want you to feel like you're going to come here and all you're going to be is a scientist. You're much more than that. Okay, so and to help with that, we have a lot of support for our students in the department. So like I mentioned, we have that teaching colloquium class to kind of get people used to teaching if you haven't had prior teaching experience. We have the graduate writing and academic success seminar that all of our students are encouraged to take, so you kind of you bond with your cohort. And we have a weekly department seminar that we encourage everybody in our research community to attend. And then we have a whole broad range of research seminars throughout the week that are focused more on the many different fields that our scientists are involved in. So those are really fun, and you probably could fill your entire schedule with just going to awesome seminars, not only from within our department, but across campus. So it might be hard to pick the ones. Sometimes in that first year, it's good that you have those faculty mentors to help guide you, because there's just so much cool things going on campus. We have a family-friendly atmosphere. There's a lactation room available on the 5th floor. Children are welcome at department events, and most of our events are scheduled during working hours so that you can actually have a home life with your family. And then there's also all kinds of awesome UC Berkeley webinars, writing groups, student groups, professional development opportunities, and more for graduate students that as a graduate student at Berkeley, you will have access to. Healthcare is included in the tuition and fees, as well as a membership to the recreational facility. That's really cool. There's all kinds of, once we can come back to campus, there's all kinds of awesome facilities on campus. But even now, we have a whole bunch of classes, Zoom classes, workout classes that our students can attend. And then there's also counseling services for our students. And there's even a special graduate assembly psychologist available specifically just for graduate students. And financially, there's fellowships, there's awards, and financial aid available. I help our students navigate that tricky field. So I'm here to help with any of those kinds of questions. And now I'm going to pass it off to Rory Bowie to talk more about research.
Thanks, Monica. So hello, everyone. My name is Rory Bowie. I'm a professor in IB and also a curator in the Museum of Vertebrate Zoology, and I'll explain what that means in a little bit. I think this is my 16th year at Berkeley, which is amazes me whenever I think about that. So at the end, please feel free to ask any questions about the program, and I'll do my best to be able to answer. And I thought I'd start off with just telling you a little bit about my background and what my lab does, and then I'll transition into sort of how that fits into the broader program of integrative biology. So I'm a first generation, I was the first in my family to go to college, like many students in our IB program, and indeed many students at Berkeley. I think one of the things that that prides me the most at being a member of the faculty at Berkeley is that about 30% of our students are first generation college students. It's something we take a lot of pride in, and we of course want to continue. So in my lab, I'm an ornithologist. I mostly work on birds, but to kind of illustrate the integrative nature, students in my lab work all the way from sequencing whole genomes of different species of birds to try and understand the genes that encode for variation in color or variation in beak morphology, or genes that might relate to adaptation to different environments, all the way to doing more ecological work, trying to understand why species are distributed across a landscape the way they are today and how they may have been distributed in the past, to doing things like song analysis song analysis and behavioral work, where we try and understand the role that song plays in maintaining isolation or mating barriers, and then even extending to species discovery. So we do a lot of field research here in Western North America, particularly California. But we've worked in Central America, we work all over Africa, we work in Indonesia. In my case, I'm particularly interested in tropical rainforests and mountains. So I've been to many of those different places. And this sort of exemplifies what many students in IB do, where they combine some form of laboratory research with going out there in nature and collecting some form of data or samples, and then they're trying to find a way to bring those two things together. So for many students in IB, fieldwork is an integral component of what they might be doing. This can encompass many different systems. This slide just shows you a few, from working on mantis shrimps that have one of the fastest sound generating concussion systems of any organism, to working in marine habitats. We have a very diverse group of faculty who work on ecological problems related to climate change and very different groups of plants, all the way to working up into alpine systems in meadows or grassland savannas. So next slide, Monica. One of the wonderful things about being part of the University of California system in general is that the university is entrusted with looking after 30 different reserves that are distributed around the state of California. So these are places that you can go to as a student and launch your project from one of those reserves, or it could encompass many of those different reserves. And so these are areas that have facilities on them. They often have little laboratories to help you collect samples, etc. And their mission is to contribute to the understanding and wise stewardship of the earth and its natural systems by supporting university level teaching, research, and public service at protected natural areas throughout California. And so many of our students take advantage of this. There's also funding that you can apply for as a graduate student that will enable you to utilize some of these reserve systems as well. And they're very rich in data because many of them are quite old. And from that, they've been able to establish long-term climate records, as well as generate different kinds of data management tools that can be used. I'll explain that later. Okay, next slide. This just gives you an example of some of the amazingly diverse ecosystems that are available across those different reserves. So it can be anywhere from working in the stinky marshlands to working in beautiful shrubland rainforest, or shrubland forests, I shouldn't say rainforests, across the deserts, or even to the intertidal zone, high up into the mountains in the coniferous pine zones, working on charismatic animals like elephant seals, or working on plants that are threatened by climate change as you move up to these high alpine environments in some of the mountains. Next slide. Each university campus is responsible for managing its own sets of these different reserves. This is just an example of the reserves that are managed by Berkeley that encompass Blue Oak, for example, here in the middle, is down in San Jose. So relatively close by. Hastings Natural Reserve, which is in Carmel Valley, is the oldest. And it's sort of a typical grass oak woodland system, all the way up into Sagehen, which goes up into higher altitude environments, coastal habitats like Angelo. So really wonderful places that where there's accommodation available and that you can go visit. Next slide. And then there's sort of the crown jewel, if you're lucky enough to go, is the Gump Field Station in French Polynesia, so very far away, sort of a tropical paradise. And many of our students who are interested in marine systems in particular, this island is a fabulous coral reef that they can exploit for their research. But it also links into some of our undergraduate teaching, where once a year we have a special course called Geomorphology of Tropical Islands, where 22 students can, undergraduate students go. But then with them go our graduate student instructors. So Monica mentioned that part of your 30,000 that supports you for the year, that money is in part, you teach some of our undergraduate courses as a way that you're earning that money. And so this is an example of one of those courses that you could do. Next slide, please. The other really famous course is a course that I teach with two other faculty in IB. It's called IB 104 on Natural History of the Vertebrates. It's one of the longest running courses at Berkeley. It was first taught in 1903. Of course, the curriculum's changed over that time. But it takes advantage of another absolutely fabulous asset that we have here, right where the campus is situated, in that highlighted here in dark green are all of the different regional parks that surround the university. And so the 6 or 7 that are highlighted by black circles here represent the different places that we take our undergraduate students. And these are just some pictures of the critters. We teach these students how to observe and identify birds, how to trap mammals, what kind of measurements to take for them, how to safely identify and handle reptiles like snakes. And of course, this is a valuable skill, right? Because many of our undergraduates, when they complete this course, go on to do consulting jobs for PG&E or other kinds of courses. So they really get immersed. And once again, a lot of the sort of teaching in this course takes place by some of our graduate students who are helping teach these different courses. Next slide. This is just some of the pictures from these field trips, showing the students' enthusiasm, some of the first experiences for getting to handle these animals. So you have to remember that many of the undergrad students that come in, just as the general, reflects the general body of the undergrad community at Berkeley, many of these are inner city college students that haven't had an opportunity to experience observing wildlife in nature, never mind getting an opportunity to handle something like a baby barn owl. And so we're both providing that opportunity and at the same time providing the training. And this, although this is an undergraduate course, it encapsulates what we try and achieve in the broader graduate program for students who are interested in combining field-based aspects with laboratory-based aspects. Next slide. And then the last tremendous resource, particularly for graduate students, is you have access to amazing research collections. So Berkeley has some of the best university museums in the world. They encompass this example over here, but all the way from the UC Botanical Gardens through museums in anthropology, one of the world's best herbariums collections, the Essex Museum of Entomology that has over 6 million insects, the Museum of Paleontology, the Museum of Vertebrate Zoology that I'm a curator in, and then the Human Evolution Research Center. So these museums house tens of thousands of specimens from all over the world. And there are many, many student dissertations that have been able to utilize these specimens to be able to do their research. Just as one example, I have a student who's just finishing up their dissertation now, and they were interested in looking at how salt marsh sparrows, so sparrows that occur in salt marshes, a very tough environment to live in, have changed over the last 100 years. And they were able to show from a morphological basis that beaks have got larger. And they've got larger because it turns out that if you have a larger beak and you have blood vessels running through it, it's a way that you can sort of cool yourself down. So as climate's warmed, birds have not got bigger beaks to eat bigger seeds, but actually got bigger beaks to be able to thermoregulate better. And not only that, the student could show by looking at the genomes of these different birds, they could find the genes that help encode changes in some of this beak morphology and show how those individual alleles have changed over time. And so to do this research, the student went out and sampled new populations and then compared those to some of the 100-year-old sparrows that we have in our collection and could look at how these animals have changed over time. Next slide. So as Monica mentioned, IB is extremely diverse in its research. And so I'm going to hand it over to Jose now, who's going to talk a little bit more about some of the cellular-based and neuroscience-based aspects of our IB research program.
Thank you, Rory, and hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Jose Vázquez Medina. I'm an assistant professor here in the Department of Integrative Biology. I'm originally from Mexico. I was born and raised in Mexico and came to the United States 12 years ago to pursue grad school. So I did my PhD at UC Merced, and then I did a 4-year postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Pennsylvania. And I started my lab here at Cal 3 years ago. So my lab is also pretty diverse, and we do studies that range from studies with cells in culture to actual field studies. I have a student, for example, who is looking at thermal physiology of elephant seals, and she uses the reserves, wind radius, and ion level. We have other students who do manipulations with elephant seals in the field, and also students who culture cells in the lab, and we do genetic manipulations to see how these animals work and function at different levels. So I'm part of them. Can we have the next slide, Monica?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I am part of the faculty that teach physiology. We have a good number of undergraduate students who are interested in health professions. So we do offer teaching opportunities for grad students who are interested in those areas. Students can teach physiology. We have a large physiology class with a laboratory. We have a large anatomy class with a laboratory. And we have really top experts in the field that do physiological and biomechanical research. This is a picture of Daniela Koffer, for example. Daniela is a neuroscientist. This is, I think, from a paper that she published last year in Science, where she found these really new phenomena that is important for understanding dementia, and she's now even developing a drug that could help treat conditions associated with this. Can we have the next one, Monica? Thank you. This is Professor Bob Fool. Professor Bob Fool studies all sorts of animals, how animals move, and he uses his research to inspire the design of robots, for example. This is super cool. And it's just an example of how integrative biology can really be applied to a lot of different fields. Can we have the next one? This is a picture of another of our senior faculty, Professor Josh Brooks. He's an exercise physiologist. He studies humans, how humans deal with exercise. So this is purely laboratory-based research. And I believe there's another picture there.
There we go.
Oh.
Sorry.
It's okay. This is actually my student, Jose Arevalo, who is interested in understanding how the body works, how the human body works, and how it changes with aging. So he's the subject of a research experiment right here. And if I can have the next slide, this is our own research with elephant seals, the cells that we isolate and we culture. Other examples, people in Karen Williams' lab study how crickets work and how what metabolic fuels they use throughout their different life stages. Professor Robert Dudley, who studies hummingbirds biomechanics and physiology. Really cool. Professor Noah Whiteman, Professor Rebecca Tarvey, who study toxin resistance. So these are just a few examples of how we really integrate field research and other resources and amazing research that Rory told you about with really fine field laboratory-based experiments, and this is how our students are exposed to all different kinds of research, and I think we have something for all. So I don't know if I have another slide.
Oh, I think it's on to Excel.
Yeah, but I will be happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Jose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Ixchel Gonzalez. I am a third-year student in the Integrative Biology department. I am also Mexican, so I was happy to see a couple people from Mexico here. And I just came 2 years ago to the US, and I will like to picture an overall idea of what's being a graduate student in Berkeley, but of course the experience varies a lot, so I'm just here representing a bunch of people, and I'll do my best to try to speak for all of them. And I'm gonna go quite fast because I feel like maybe you will be more interested in asking specific questions at the end. So yeah, as Monica mentioned, we're 127 students. Something that is nice in the department, and that's partially the reason I chose it, is because it allows you to pursue your goals in terms of you can pick your research topic. So there's a lot of freedom on developing the kind of skills and asking the kind of questions you're interested in. And that also means that probably you have to be very proactive, and I guess I feel comfortable working by my own. And I guess also that depends a lot on your advisor. Different advisors will have different styles, but I feel like it requires some sort of idea of what you want to pursue. It doesn't mean you have to have a project to start, but it means that you have to be curious. Can we move to the next one, please? Okay, so this slide is just what do you do when you're here, right? So you're gonna be here for 5 years. So I guess something that is good to keep in mind is to have clear goals. Again, you don't have to have them from the beginning, but you work with your committees. And that gets me to something that I feel like it's really nice in the department, that is you have several committees through your PhD process, which allows you to interact with different faculty members. And again, in my experience, they're very open and they're always supporting, which is very nice because you're not just limited on what you can get from one faculty member, right? So you have a group of people working with you, and also that allows you to meet people in other labs. Sometimes something I really like is interaction with other grad students, especially because we have very different interests, but then you learn a lot about things that at the very beginning you may not think are related to what you do, but at the end they're just like mind-opening. And then I feel like there's, in general, not only in the department, but in Berkeley overall, a lot of opportunities to develop some important skills. Like, for example, writing or teaching. There's a lot of, like, also coding. We have a lot of different resources. So you can expand your knowledge or skills as much as you want. There's so many opportunities. And also that is something that I really enjoy about the department, is that you make a lot of very good friends. It's not only, I feel like part of the experience in a PhD is not only getting the technical skills you want, but also developing a network. And I think that's very easy to do in our department. And yeah, of course, regardless of the program you go, here or wherever you decide, taking care of yourself is very important. And I feel like we're doing a lot of efforts in the department for making that a top priority for faculty and grad students. Can we get the next one, please? Okay, so we thought that it was nice just to show some examples, to picture some other people in the department and talk about, like, very fast of what they do. So here we have Stacy, which I think it's the second year now, and she works on C. elegans, right? And she does a lot of computational, but also lab. So this is like the integrative approach that she has taken. The next one, please. Then we have Peter in the UCMP. So the UCMP, as Rory mentioned, it's this museum of paleontology, which is great. They also have seminars that you can attend all the time. And the approach of Peter is using 3D generated models to study the evolution of turtles, right? So he's taking like this technique and it's applying to a new system, not only with living things, but also fossil things. And everything is integrated through evolution, of course. The next one, please. So we have Jackie. She's working in the MPC, so the other museum. And she's working, so it's integrative in many ways because it's not only working with the organism, she's working with nests, right? She's not only looking at the organism, but what the organism does. So that has some behavioral component. And then she's using the collection, which is great. Can we see the next one? Then we have Josh, who is also in the UCMP, and he's studying climate change, right? So another thing in the department is that it can be very applied. You don't have to do basic science all the time. As I said, you have a lot of freedom. So he's doing models of climate change using fossil information. Can we do the next one? And then we have other interesting things. So for example, Alexei is doing field work in Africa. He's working with chimps, and he's studying the evolution of alcohol metabolism, right? Is there a phylogenetic component on our, as a humanity, our overall taste for alcohol? Do we have some sort of evolutionary pattern there? So that's very, he does like phylogenies, he does field work, and he also does lab work. Next one, please. And then we have Julianne. So I think she's more on the neuroscience part, so I haven't interacted much with her. I cannot speak that much, but that's also an important component, neurophysiology. Probably Jose could talk more about that, but can we do the next one? And then Sina, he's working on these organisms that have like sexual dimorphism, right? So it's looking at their descendant signals between different organisms, like different sexes, and how that fits into an evolutionary process. So I guess I just wanted to give an overall idea of the kind of projects you can do here. Can we have the next one? And that's me. Mm-hmm. I just work with, I work with plants. I love plants. I work with liverworts. They're super tiny plants, and I studied their evolution, also trying to provide some information that is valuable for conservation strategies. But I also do a lot of computational work. I don't do that much lab, but I do a lot of computational work, a lot of modeling, a lot of field work, and I meant at least part of my dissertation to be applied. And I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ixchel.
Again, I'm happy to answer questions at the end.
Yes, and we're almost there, everybody. So I just really quickly wanted to mention, like, okay, if you get a PhD in integrative biology, what do our alumni do? And I help maintain our PhD alumni network, so I actually know where everybody goes. And some people go into, you know, being a professor at a research university. People can also become professors at teaching universities or even community colleges. Some folks go into research staff or curator positions at research institutions and museums all around the world. We also have a pretty large contingent of people that go into data science and biomedical, pharmaceutical, biotech industry, or government jobs, or helping to create science policy. And then people also go into STEM education, STEM outreach, STEM communication, journalism, all around science and the biological sciences. And some folks go into the nonprofit world to be directors of institutes or helping solve issues through nonprofit venues. So that's not everything. Of course, people go and do all different kinds of things, but that sort of encapsulates a large portion of our alumni, our PhD alumni. And now we're at the question answer session. So I'm going to stop recording and